Welcome to episode 31 of Believe in TCU as part of the Believe Network. I'm Zion Trammell, joined alongside Ian Napetian and Seth Dowdle. It's been a busy week for TCU athletics, but today we're going to be talking TCU baseball and men's basketball as they took down number 9 Texas Tech last night. So much going on in Fort Worth, but quick check-in, guys. How are we doing today? Have we been able to keep up with all the madness happening around TCU?
Yeah, somehow, some way been able to keep up baseball with the big weekend out in San Diego. Then that men's game last night was one of the craziest things I've probably ever seen. Did not expect it at all, but yeah, Horned Frog Sports is definitely on a roll right now.
I had like four screens on Saturday night when I was trying to watch like every sporting event that was happening around the universe. There was like the dunk contest and USA Canada, as well as two TCU sporting events happening like all simultaneously. I mean, we got it done though. We absorbed it all, and now we're ready to talk about it. It was a good weekend for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot going on, but we're going to start things off with baseball because baseball season is officially back. So excited to dive deep into that and talk about this TCU team. They went 4-0 on the weekend, went up to San Diego and swept the Toreros. It was a fun weekend for sure. They won 5-4 in extra innings on Friday, and on Saturday won 9-2, Sunday 13-5, and then Monday a narrow 7-6 victory. A great start for the Horned Frogs. Lots of different things to take away from this weekend. So I'll leave it up. I'll open it up to you guys. What were your initial thoughts and takeaways from this opening weekend for the Horned Frogs?
The first thing that comes to mind is just depth. I mean, I know we've talked about it, outside of the show and on the show as well, but this team has so much depth. It's something that this TCU baseball program maybe hasn't been used to in years past, where you come into a season and obviously you hear about that real tough news about Ben Abelt and his elbow, and you're just kind of like, that stinks, obviously. But then you still look at this pitching staff and you say, look, we've actually got some really good arms that can step up here, and we saw that this weekend. I mean, not to say that the Frogs don't need Ben Abel because he's a fantastic pitcher, but TCU was able to hold their own this weekend against a really good San Diego team. And then also because it's a 4-game series, it was really nice to get to see so many different bats and so many different guys play the field. That's exactly what you want to see early on, just to try to get a feel of where guys can play and how guys feel in certain spots. So just a really successful first weekend considering all things heading into this season opening series.
Yeah, definitely kind of had, especially on Friday, we get the news, I guess that was on Thursday, that, Ben Abel not going to be available for this entire season. And obviously we knew he wasn't going to be pitching this weekend, but it was someone that we were all looking forward to. And it's kind of a Debbie Downer to start the year. And then, you go into that game on Friday and it's close and TCU's down. But then they make the comeback and they win the game in extra innings. And then they just roar from there. Yeah, it was definitely a series where I feel like we learned a lot. There's still some uncertainty, I feel like, in certain areas, or lack of consistency in terms of like how the 4 games went. First couple of games or first like game and a half was not really impressed with what the offense was doing. A lot of strikeouts. And then all of a sudden, the next 2 games they're hitting like crazy. Pitching across the board was fantastic. Like you mentioned, Ian, a lot of depth there. And I feel like it's been a while since I've been this excited about a TCU staff, pitching staff. Because I feel like last year we were optimistic, but we definitely were very worried when Zach Morris was the Sunday starter.
Yeah.
And that is not the case, I feel like, this year, where there's a weak link, or a very, glaring weak link, at least so far. Well, obviously there's a lot of baseball left to be played. But yeah, I'm certainly optimistic about how this went. San Diego's a really good mid-major. In all the mid-major rankings from any reputable source, they're in the top 10 of mid-major programs in the countries, or at least top 15. But yeah, the tests keep on coming though, and we'll talk about this, I feel like. But really big weekend for TCU this weekend too, to continue to prove themselves. But yeah, so far so good.
I was definitely impressed with the way the pitching staff looked, like you mentioned, Seth. I mean, super excited to see what Kirk Saarloos can do with this, because that's more of his strong suit. But we mentioned in the last episode the impact that Bill Mosiello will have coming back to TCU and hopefully impacting this offense. Well, we saw it courtesy of the long ball, 11 home runs this weekend. We didn't see that a lot with this TCU team. I felt like they were lacking a lot of power, and they got that in a big way this weekend. So super excited to see about that, how that progresses throughout the season. Cole Kramer had a big weekend, 7 for 17, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. We saw an absolute bomb from Noah Franco, which Ian told us before we started recording. That was 480 feet. That is major league level power, and then some. I mean, that's a bomb. That's crazy. It was pretty wild to see, but again, the offense was a little bit sputtery in those first couple games, but we saw on Saturday in the late innings they started to break out with some with the power, and then we saw that carry over to Sunday and Monday. So thoroughly impressed with the way TCU played this weekend, and eager for things to come.
You said 11 homers, right? Oh, sorry, Ian.
Oh, no.
11 homers.
Seth, go ahead.
We had 46 last year total.
Oh, wow.
So we're almost there. I mean, like, we're like on a 4-week pace to catch up to where we were last year.
That's insane.
With our home run total. Yeah, TCU was second to last in the Big 12 in home runs. The only team that had less was Baylor with 42, which is telling. And I feel like the lack of power was something that we talked about a lot last year, where this offense didn't have anybody that could just go out there and flip a game on its head with one swing. I guess that guy would have been Peyton Tolley, but he really he didn't swing the bat at all last year. Mostly because he struggled so much, but he was a guy that kind of had that type of pop. But yeah, TCU's hope that we win college baseball games by pitchers that strike people out and dudes that hit nukes. That's kind of how college baseball works now, and TCU appears to have at least half of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I mean, with the amount of long balls that TCU's hit, it's very exciting to see that guys are connecting early on in the season too. And hopefully you can keep it up. Obviously, 11 home runs in the first 4 games is not it's going to be a very difficult pace to keep up with. But going back to something that you mentioned, Zion, with Bill Mosiello, obviously came back after 2 seasons as a head coach at Ohio State. And it's interesting, right? You look at this TCU team, they struck out, 50 times this weekend in 4 games. Very alarming numbers. But then they also scored so many runs, and the long ball was there too. And it's like going into Bill Mosiello's philosophy, he is a hitting coach that likes his guys to wait for their pitch. He doesn't necessarily say attack early like you've seen in the last 2 years under TJ Bruce. With Bill Mosiello, he wants guys to work counts. He wants guys to defend. So you're going to get a lot of walks, which TCU had 22 this weekend. And you're also going to get a lot of strikeouts, which TCU had 50 of this weekend, because you're going to be working full counts. You're going to be working 3-ball counts. You're going to be working 2-strike counts, right? And not to say that it's okay to strike out 50 times in 4 games and still win and be happy, but I think it's more of, hey, this is kind of the style that Bill Mosiello is preaching, not to be a strikeout heavy team, but to wait for your pitch. And we saw that guys took long balls mainly to the opposite field this weekend, or it was split pretty 50-50. Chase Brunson hit an opposite field 2-run shot on Sunday. Jack Bell hit a opposite field grand slam. You saw a lot of guys hit doubles to the opposite field gap down the left field line. Noah Franco's first hit as a Horned Frog was a double down the left field line. Cole Kramer, he hit a home run to opposite field as well. So again, it's like these guys are waiting for their pitch, they're getting their pitch, and then they're able to barrel it up, which is something that, again, TCU did not do at all last season. And no, it's just exciting. It's really exciting to see how hot this offense can be, and then also to see how much this pitching staff was able to shut down San Diego in those big innings, like that 9-run fourth inning on that Sunday, which was just ridiculous, sending 13 guys up to the plate, 2 bombs from Franco. I mean, everybody contributed to this 4-game sweep this weekend. So,
Yeah, Tommy Laporte, good debut for TCU. 6 innings, 6 hits, no runs, 5 strikeouts, and just 1 walk. He got out of a bases loaded jam in that start, and very impressed with him. The transfer from Wichita State, hoping to carry over what Peyton Tolley, who transferred over from Wichita State, maybe have that same similar success for TCU. Also liked what I saw from Braden Sloan this weekend. 4 innings, 8 strikeouts. Showed flashes last season, and certainly has strikeout stuff. So, just pointing out a couple guys that I was impressed with. But yeah, I mean, really, you can't ask for much better from this TCU team. They will play at Globe Life Field this weekend, where they have been notoriously very good at for the last couple seasons, but they will have some very tough matchups going up against Michigan on Friday, Arkansas, the 5th-ranked team in the country, on Saturday, and then Kansas State on Sunday. So going to be a real early season test for TCU. What are you guys hoping to see from this weekend?
Well, I know that like we're all both. I mean, for me, you look at that schedule before the season starts, and I'm looking forward to the Arkansas Kansas State matchups. But don't sleep on that Michigan game. Michigan just went 4-0 in Puerto Rico, including a win against number 2 Virginia. So don't sleep on the Wolverines. So what I'm looking for, I don't know. I think record-wise, I'd perfectly be fine with like a 2-1 weekend. I feel like that would suffice. Just looking for more of the same. Ian, you mentioned 50 strikeouts. Let's cut that down a bit. Continue the same offensive production. Continue to work counts though, but like let's not have those long counts result in Ks instead. Maybe walks or base hits. I feel like one of my biggest goals for this weekend. I feel like if everything else stays the status quo, they'll continue to be good. But I feel like there's room to improve on the strikeout rate for sure. Because sure, you can kind of toe that line against like a San Diego, but against maybe stiffer competition, the opportunities are going to be fewer and far between.
yeah, and kind of just piggybacking off of that, right? I mean, obviously improving on those strikeout numbers is going to be big, and it's not even to say that instead of strikeouts, I want you to get a hit. It's just put the ball in play.
Yeah.
Advance runners, right? Hit it to the opposite side. Get that guy over from second to third, right? I think
more productive outs for sure.
Exactly. You need productive outs, and TCU did that well this weekend. They really took advantage when they had runners in scoring position and guys on base for the most part. They did strand the bases loaded once this weekend, I believe, and a couple of times, other times where they left guys in scoring position. But I think it's just about those productive outs and also stringing hits together. Aside from that 9-run fourth inning on Sunday, there wasn't really a time where this TCU team was just like passing the baton over and over and over again. And I know it's still the first weekend, but I think if this team can, this TCU team likes to steal bases, they like to draw walks, they like to put pressure on opposing pitchers. Then if you can get on base and just make more productive outs, put the ball in play more, TCU will have so much. Will have a very straightforward way to attack the game and a much easier way toward a win by just being slightly more productive.
100%. Yeah. I mean, they were helped out by the long ball last weekend. I don't know how much, if that's going to continue this weekend. So yeah, utilize the speed on the base paths, maybe play some small ball, get those productive outs. And, because you're going to go up against some really good pitching this weekend. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there Friday and Sunday for the Michigan and Kansas State games, and then Arkansas should be a lot of fun. I remember when I went to that Globe Life game a couple years ago against Arkansas, the Razorback faithful, they show up, man. They'll really do.
They will be there for sure. I will not. They will.
They will be there. Okay.
And they will be loud. They will, especially in the echoous cavern that is the barn of Globe Life Field. It'll be loud.
Yeah.
It'll be loud in there. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, not to get all, not talk about other teams more, but this is, I feel like, the weekend we all had circled in the preseason for, where can TCU prove that they, maybe belong on a bigger stage in terms of national prominence this season in college baseball. And if you go out there and perform well against a team like Arkansas or Michigan, and I know Michigan and Arkansas are on two different stratospheres in terms of college baseball success, in what all pertains to the last couple of seasons, then you put yourself, maybe in the category of best Big 12 team. And I feel like that's kind of where TCU needs to find itself heading into the postseason, is in the top two range in the conference, just for national prominence. I know that that's very early to talk about, but this is going to be a very ACC, SEC heavy college baseball season. If you look, we looked at the top 10 last week, Zion. There's only one non-ACC, SEC team in the top 10.
It's
and it's
crazy.
Oregon State, who is an independent, technically.
Yep. Yeah, this weekend will be a very good early season test to see where TCU kind of stands and maybe what they're capable of. And again, I think you're right, Seth, in that a 2-1 weekend would be great. I'd be perfectly fine with a 2-1 weekend, depending on, I mean, what Kansas State went 2-1, was it, or did they go 1-2 this weekend? I can't remember, but
they lost to North Carolina last night, so they might be 2-2 now.
Okay, it might be 2-2, but yeah, it'll be a really good little litmus test to see where this team is and just say, all right, this is what we're working with. This is how we look against the really top dog.
They're 1-4, actually. I don't even know
okay.
where
1-4. So hopefully, fingers crossed, a 2-1. But yeah, once again, I mean, the Frogs love Globe Life. That is not a secret anymore. Whether it's the Big 12 tournament, whether it's playing there because of the weather, practicing there, it is definitely their second home. So,
Absolutely, very excited to catch all that this weekend. And that was really good, productive talk talking about TCU baseball. It's been a good start to the season, and they'll look to keep it going this weekend. Now we will completely shift gears and we'll go to a different sport. We'll talk TCU men's basketball. They have won 5 out of their last 6 games, and they have been one for the dramatics, for these late game situations where you start stressing out and you wonder if TCU is going to pull it out. But they've been able to do that, and they got their biggest win of the season, defeating number 9 Texas Tech 69-66. On a big night for Desmond Bane and his jersey retirement night. It was an incredible, incredible evening for TCU men's basketball. Ian, you were there at the game, on site,
on the court
as a fan, yeah, on the court after the game. I just wanted to start things off with that. Tell us about the atmosphere, what that was like watching the game and just going on the court celebrating.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a really good atmosphere. I was in the bottom bowl of the student section, right around the second or third row, and down there it was great. I wasn't sure exactly how much it had filled up, but as you got closer to tip off, definitely the whole arena started to fill up a little more. Crazy atmosphere. You got to hand it to Tech fans. I mean, they always travel. This isn't, anything that nobody doesn't know already, but the Texas Tech fans were there. They were loud. They were obnoxious. But no, it was a really great game. TCU played really hard. You got some really good performances. Trezarian White, 16 points, as well as Noah Reynolds, who had 16 points. Ernest Uday Jr., 11 points, 10 rebounds. Really good stuff from TCU. They shot the 3-ball pretty well. Just played really, really gritty defense as well. They put in a few good, tough defensive stands down the line as the game went on, especially in those last 3-4 minutes that really helped TCU kind of, edge that game out.
Yeah, TCU, they took a 66-63 lead with 3 minutes and 36 seconds to go. And neither team were able to score until there was about 10 seconds left when Noah Reynolds hit a turnaround jumper to give them a 5-point lead. But yeah, you hit it right there with the defense. Honestly, it was probably the best defensive performance I've seen from this TCU team against the Texas Tech offense. That's one of the top offenses in the country. I think they're averaging about 81, 82 points per game this season. So to hold them to 66 was impressive. Thought the rebounding effort was really good, fighting for loose balls. There was one there at the end with Trezarian White where he's able to dive on top of a ball and get the ball back for TCU. Ernest Uday had a double-double, 10 rebounds, was a threat in the paint. He was a lob threat, found himself in the right position a lot of the time. And just that was the biggest thing for me was the defense. Really impressed with the way that Jamie Dixon was able to get his team prepared for such a electric offense over there with Texas Tech. And then the late game execution has been really good over the last few weeks. I wouldn't say perfect. There's been some moments like, oh, I wish, maybe knock a free throw down or whatever. But it seems to me that Noah Reynolds and Vashawn Alette have been the guys to go to in those situations. And Reynolds was able to help seal the game away. So hats off to TCU. What a gutsy win.
And all of a sudden, you turned away from TCU men's basketball. They lose by 30 to Iowa State a couple weeks ago. And I don't know, I'm not talking about anyone in particular here. But you just like, okay, well, I'm not going to pay attention anymore. This is not worth my time. Not talking about anyone in particular. And before you know it, they're 8-7 in Big 12 play, and people are talking about the tournament. What in the world? What are we talking about, guys?
A team that lost to Santa Clara and Colorado State in non-con.
Well, here's something that's actually very discouraging. And this is not like tried and true statement here, but if you just beat those two teams, you have a much better case.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. You lost to Santa Clara, lost to Colorado State.
Yeah,
but Michigan
they lost
early on.
Yeah,
you'll
and the
take
Michigan
the Vandy
loss,
and Michigan games. Those are fine. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah,
but Santa Clara, Colorado State, man. Anyway, this is happy times. We're 8-7.
It is happy times.
All of a sudden, TCU has the same Big 12 record as Kansas and Baylor, and I would say that the odds of us making the tournament are still very, very slim, and I would not bet any money on it. But if a couple of things break their way, they play well these last 5 games of the year, and then they got to go on a run in the conference tournament, they might have an outside shot, and that's more than they could have said about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think for this team, it's more about, and again, it's kind of how you look at postseason baseball. But TCU's there's rumblings of the Frogs, now getting hot, right? And what is it? 5 wins out of the last 5 out of the last 6 games TCU has won. And if this is when TCU is going to get hot and start to go on a run and feel like they're on a roll, then this is probably the best time. You're ending the season. You got 5 games left, 2 at home, 3 on the road, a couple really tough matchups. But if you can, squeak out some wins here and there, and things fall your way, you can try to make a good little run here for some potential, very meaningful postseason basketball. But at the very least, NIT. So.
Yeah, and I feel like that might be my goal, and I feel like that was my goal anyway for them, was to make the NIT. The problem, I feel like, you said 5 out of the last 6, 4 of those wins are at home. The 1 loss was on the road. TCU is a very good home team and a very poor road team.
Yeah,
away from the Schollmeyer, they have not played particularly well. Their last. Here, let's look at their last road game was against Arizona State. It was a 74-70 win. Their road games before that were at Tech or at Iowa State. They lost by 30. At Tech, they lost by double digits. At UCF, we don't talk about that game at all. No one mentioned that game. No one. And then they beat Baylor on the road.
Yeah.
So it's either like a good close win on the road, or they lose by 30 is really what it is. So we'll see how it goes. The road games are, though, pretty favorable: Cincinnati, West Virginia, and Colorado. So.
I was just going to mention that the remainder of this schedule, if with the Big 12's tough, but there are some very winnable games here, I think. But like you mentioned, winning on the road has been a challenge for TCU. Luckily, they get Baylor at home, which and who they've already beat, and then UCF at home. But yeah, those are all very winnable games. I think you probably have to go 4-1 to even be at the very minimum 3-2. But I would like 4-1 just to kind of be further in those discussions. But yeah, I mean, talking March Madness, I mean, obviously this wasn't even a thought just a couple weeks ago, and it's still very much a distant reality that they could make the tournament at this point. But the fact that they are even in this conversation, I think, is pretty impressive. It speaks a lot to what Jamie Dixon has been able to do. He's definitely gotten the most that he can possibly get out of these guys. A lot of young talent, a lot of freshmen that are playing. It's a young team, and it took a long time for them to gel and develop that chemistry. I think what we saw with the women's team was kind of something, just a lot of veteran players, a lot of transfers coming in, and they were able to, get and develop chemistry pretty quickly. But with this younger team, it took some time, and now we're starting to see that pay off a little bit better. But yeah, Jamie Dixon's done a great job with this team, and I'm very pleased with the way they've been playing. And it's been kind of an underdog season for TCU, and a lot to be excited about. If it's not this season, next season, if you can retain some of these guys.
It just goes to show that maybe we all should have pumped the brakes a bit on the Jamie Dixon hate talk earlier. I did not indulge in that. I did not indulge, but we did indulge about ceiling. I remember we had a conversation about like what do you get from a Jamie Dixon team, which we just talked about what it is. But yeah, he does more with a lot less here at TCU. He's had rosters that don't have, like, they have like maybe like a Desmond Bane type, and that's it. And they've done pretty well. And this team is definitely, I feel like, the least he's had in a while. And he's been able to do a fine job once everything kind of settled in. And I feel like that's kind of what it took, a long time for it to settle in, a long time for them to gel, but we've gotten here. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we got more games to play, and it could all tailspin and go downhill, and we could be talking about how this has been a really bad season at the end of this. But right now, as we stand, things are on the up. If they continue this way, I think I will look back positively on this season if TCU can continue this momentum. Obviously, a lot to happen, but right now, but I'm feeling positive. And I got to point this out. I got to point this out. You look at the stat leaders for TCU, and this is a little bit different. On ESPN, it has the team leaders. It has points per game, assists per game, and field goal percentage. Cole Despy, 100% field goal percentage for TCU.
Look at that depth.
A guy that we don't ever talk about is the best in those categories. It's
Sorry,
incredible.
I just had to point that out. I'm on the ESPN team page, and I was like, yeah, Noah Reynolds, 12.9 points per game. Vashon Ouellette, 3 assists per game. Cole Despy, 100% field goal percentage, and it has points per game 3, and it's probably one game where he hit a 3.
That's funny. Just a little side note. Cole Despy actually went to my rival high school in California.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He went to Bellarmine College Prep, and I went to Sarah High School. We're two big rival high schools, but I just thought I'd toss that in there. Very random fact, but there, Cole Despy, random fact of the day.
Making the connections here.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't even know. That was probably like a non-conference, very early season. It was one shot attempt probably, but maybe 2. But yeah, kind of going back to this team a little bit, just the emergence of this front court has been amazing. I already talked a little bit about Ernest Uday, but David Punch had a good game, 9 points, 7 rebounds, and a block. And even at times, Malik Diallo has been really good off the bench for TCU. He had a big game, and I believe it was against Arizona State. He was impressive, but yeah, we're kind of seeing we're seeing these young guys mature a lot. Jace Posey's been good. He had some momentum plays with that alley-oop caught from, I think it was from Ouellette, and then he had a big dunk there at the end of the first half. So it's been really fun to see the emergence of some young players, and I think TCU fans can be excited for the future.
Yeah, and we talk about this season being a transition year, and what comes in a transition year is that excitement of finding and discovering the foundation for the future, right? You get to see some of this young talent, you get to let them play, let them gain experience as well, right? And it allows fans to say, okay, you know what? Maybe this team isn't what we need. Maybe we need a couple other pieces, but we've got some really good players that can build a good frame and a good structure for the next couple of seasons, right? As long as they stay together, as long as TCU and Jamie Dixon tries to keep them away from the transfer portal. Like, obviously, you'll lose a couple guys here and there. TCU will be able to also bring guys in as well, right? I think that's also something that's exciting too, is you can bring in some veteran talent and say, look, you can be the leader of this team and lead some of these young guys and teach them and be that main facilitator in what is a very new and upcoming, exciting looking team. So you've gotten to see a lot of what this foundation can be for the years to come.
Yeah, and I think, and we've talked about this, it's a very similar blueprint to the 2020-21 season. That was Mike Miles' freshman year, where it was not a good season. They did not play that well, but we saw what Mike Miles could do, and we were excited about Mike Miles. And then what they did is they added veteran transfer portal pieces like Emmanuel Miller in the offseason and built around the guys that they had recruited with the transfer. That's how you best utilize it, in my opinion. You don't just build a roster from scratch, although you can do that. You have to kind of use it as, use the two in tandem with one another. And that's what TCU was able to do with that run that they had the last several seasons with Miles and then Miller and then Baugh. Do that here. I don't know if there's a guy on this roster that's as good as Mike Miles was his freshman season, but I feel like the same kind of point stands with build with these guys, add some more pieces, like you said, Ian, because this team, I feel like if you just copied and pasted this team to next year, we wouldn't get the results we wanted. But if you add some more, could be in a pretty good spot.
Absolutely. Very, very promising things coming from the TCU side. It was a fun night beating Texas Tech 69-66 on a night where they honored Desmond Bane. It was a really cool ceremony. Cool to see all his former teammates and current teammates with the Memphis Grizzlies give him all that praise. He 100% deserves it. He was a fantastic player for this TCU team. Most games played in program history, third in points all time, and has certainly been a great player for the Grizzlies. But what a night for TCU, and what a week it's been for the Horned Frog athletics. We didn't even get to talk about TCU women's basketball. They've got a big game coming up this Sunday against West Virginia. So next week we'll break that down. We'll talk about the Globe Life series for baseball, and then we'll try to talk a little men's basketball. Just a quick side note, they play Cincinnati on Saturday. They've won 3 straight Big 12 games. If they beat Cincinnati, it will be just the second time ever that they've won 4 consecutive Big 12 games. So something to keep an eye on there for this weekend. But that'll wrap things up here for this episode of Believe in TCU. We thank you all for tuning in. You can follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube page, or listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, all at Believe in TCU. So for Seth Dowdle and Ian Nepetian, I'm Zion Trammell. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, go Frogs.